Welcome to the 19-9 podcast. I'm Aaron Meyer, the host of today's show. Co-host duties fall to Josh Barnett, co-owner and co-founder of 19-9. Our guest today is Joe Hillman. He was Robert Montgomery Knight's first recruit west of the Mississippi, co-founder of Trust Wealth Strategies, member of Indiana's last championship team in 1987, and endorsed by Coach Knight in his senior day speech as the most valuable player in the Big Ten. I'm going to throw it to Josh to kick things off with Joe.
Well, first of all, Joe, thanks for joining us on the podcast. My intro was not nearly as cool as yours, but that's okay.
You always get better, Josh, is the longer you get away from graduating.
Yeah. So Meyer hit on it in the beginning and talking about you being the first recruit west of the Mississippi for Coach Knight. But we always like to ask our guests, especially people that are coming on for the first time, how they fell in love with the game. I know you were a big baseball player as well. So growing up, baseball, basketball, how did you juggle that? How did you fall in love with one or the other? And kind of how did that all take shape, you getting from California then to IU? So start wherever you want and work us towards IU.
All right. Yeah, when I was a little kid, my dad had played baseball and basketball at USC, but I grew up playing everything, football, basketball, baseball, played them all. When I was 4 or 5 years old, I lived in Burbank, actually, is where I was born, and the next door neighbor was a guy, and we used to kind of play 2-on-2 with the two junior high guys that lived 2 doors down, and then we just got involved in playing, signed up for T-ball, played baseball, signed up for youth basketball, and I liked it. I was good at it. Our teams won, and that always just gravitates to more and more and more. So I always had the belief that you played, and my dad ingrained this in me. Hey, you play as many of them you can for as long as you can until somebody says you're not good enough to play anymore. And so one of the big things for me was I loved both baseball and basketball. I was probably a better baseball player, but I just didn't put as much time into it as basketball, because once baseball ended, it went to basketball. And then I would play basketball, and then baseball would start, boom, you'd play, and then finish. But one of the big things for me was I wanted to play both in college. And how everything came about to Indiana was my dad's business partner was a guy by the name of Denny Fitzpatrick. And Denny Fitzpatrick was the captain of the 1959 Cal Berkeley National Championship team that was coached by Pete Newell. And Pete Newell.
That's one of Coach Knight's. Yeah, that's one of Coach Knight's.
Yeah, one of Coach Knight's mentors, really.
Yep.
And my junior year, Coach Newell used to come to some of my games, and he was dealing with the Lakers, and he was a part of their front office. And he came to one of my games and said something to me like, hey, you got any interest in playing in Indiana? He goes, I've never told Bob Knight about a kid, but you need to go there. I said, I'd love to go to Indiana. He goes, all right, let me make a call. And so that's kind of how the whole thing got started. And when Coach Knight came out to meet me, I was just coming down from Stanford at my first recruiting trip. I went to Stanford, got home on that Sunday, and my dad picked me up and said, hey, we're meeting Coach Newell and Coach Knight at Santa Anita at the Turf Club. You got to go put on a coat and tie. And I'm like, all right, well, that's great. We get to go to the track because Pete Newell loved the track. I grew up 15 minutes from Santa Anita. So we go, and Coach Knight grabs me and says, hey, let's go talk. So we go on our own, and we're sitting down and we're overlooking the racetrack. And if you've ever been to Santa Anita, San Gabriel Mountains are up there. And I mean, it's just a spectacular view. And Coach Knight says, well, Pete Newell tells me you can play. He's never told me about a kid before. But if Pete tells me you can play, I'm pretty sure you can play. But why do you want to go to Indiana? We don't have anything like this. Yeah. And I said, well, I want to play in a national championship team, and that's not happening in the Pac-10. And he said, I can't guarantee you one, but I'll guarantee you 4 chances at one. And Coach Knight was the most honest coach when it came to the whole recruitment, and he didn't blow smoke up my rear end. He just said, hey, here's how it works in Indiana. You're probably not going to play much as a freshman. You're going to contribute as a sophomore, and then you're going to start your junior and senior years, which is exactly what happened. Everybody else is telling me, hey, we need you. You're going to start. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. And it's like, man, you guys must not be very good. If some freshman. Now, I thought I was pretty good. So I'm thinking, yeah, okay, I can do that. But Coach Knight was the most honest. And he just said, hey, here's the deal. I don't know if you're going to like it. Do not sign early. Why don't you come to Bloomington when we have a game, because I want you to experience what this is all about. And he said, if you like it, you come. If you don't, then that's fine. I get it. No big deal. In between me going to Bloomington for my trip, Coach Jim Cruz came out, saw me play, watched a bunch of film, and then I went out and made my trip, and that was kind of the end of it. It was kind of funny. They played the Italian national team in the game that I went to. The place was packed. Stu Robinson hit a shot to win the game. And as we're walking off the floor, Coach Knight puts his arm around me and says, are you coming or aren't you? I mean, I'm 7 years old, I'm by myself. And I said, well, I need to go talk to my dad. He goes, no. Are you coming or aren't you? I need an answer. And I said, I really need to go talk to my dad. He goes, I'm going to ask you one more time. This is your choice, not your dad's choice. Are you coming or aren't you? And I said, yeah, I love this. This is me. I'm coming. He goes, pass me on the back. I said, okay, I'll talk to you later. I never saw him again. So he ended up calling me a couple weeks later and said, hey, why don't we just commit and get this done with? And so that's what happened.
I love that. You said something in there too, talking about winning. Is that why you knew about Indiana? Like, how did you, as a California kid, even know where Indiana was? Because I know a lot of people when I was living in California weren't quite sure where Indiana was, except in the middle somewhere.
Well, I'll tell you, Aaron, where it started was when ESPN kind of got cranked up in 79, 80. They showed a lot of Indiana games. And I was watching Isaiah and Whitman and Kitchell and Ray Tolbert and even Woody in 80. But then my dad picked Indiana in his brackets in 1981 in this pool that he had at the office. Oh, yes. And they weren't like top 10 or anything. I don't even know where they were at the end of the year. But he said, look, this team's playing unbelievable. And we watched them the whole way through any game that we could get. And I just remember my dad, he won his office pool because Indiana won. So after that, then I really followed them a lot in 82, 83 because they were on quite a bit on ESPN when it first started. And the style of play, the motion offense, I love that. And that's what I grew up playing, and it helped me. I didn't want to just run sets because even as a kid, I never believed in just A, B, C, D basketball because if B's taken away, what do you got? You got one-on-one. Well, that wasn't going to help me. So the style of play, the fan interest, when I walked into Assembly Hall, it was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Because where I grew up, everybody thought I was going to go to SC because my dad went to SC. A guy that was a year older than me in my high school, Ron Young, was a really good player. He goes to SC the year before me, and his dad and my dad played together at SC. So everybody's talking Hillman and Young, going back to SC. But you'd go to a game, there'd be 2,500 people there. You go up to Stanford, 5,000 seat, 6,000 seat arena. I had no interest in going to UCLA whatsoever. So, when I see what comparatively what that was, and I come back to Bloomington, it was a no-brainer. But I had no idea. I really had no idea what I was getting into as far as the lifestyle change and just the things that you can do in Glendale as far as when you're bored, you get in your car and drive 30 minutes, you're at the beach, you could go 2 hours and you could be skiing in the same day.
Yeah.
So it was a little bit of a culture shock, but now I would never go back to LA. No chance.
Yeah. No
Yeah,
doubt.
that's super interesting. One thing you hit on, we want to get into 87. I told you before we got on the pod together that it's my all-time favorite team. And I have a quota on all our shows that I have to mention Steve Alford at least one time. So we'll get into that in a minute. But I love talking basketball, especially with old school players. Because that's where we come from too, and obviously we built an entire company based around it, and kind of the nostalgia of it. But the motion offense is so underrated to me, and everybody today, you don't see much of it. It's a lot of micromanage, calling out plays. First, a break and then a secondary break and maybe a third option off of that. But like you said, if all those are taken away, what the hell do you do next? Why don't you, in your opinion, how come we don't, has the game evolved past the motion offense, or are people just not schooled in it like Coach Knight was? Why don't we see a motion offense at the college level as much anymore?
Well, it's a great observation, Josh, and it's because it's not easy. You know what's real easy? Running high pick and roll and three guys standing outside the three-point line. And you know where that's all started? It started in the NBA, then it trickled down into AAU because AAU doesn't have a practice. They just get together and play games. So what's real easy to run? Get your best ball handler, a guy can make plays, screen up, and let other three guys stand around and shoot. Great.
Yeah.
But if you're going to have that, you better have guys that can shoot, which what Indiana hasn't had in the last 4 years. I mean, you better have some guys who can shoot the ball if you're going to do that.
Yeah.
But it's real easy to coach. I mean, what do you have to do? What are you coaching if you run a pick and roll? What are you teaching? Nothing.
Yeah.
You don't have to teach anything.
Yeah.
I always thought that with motion offense too, everybody felt a part of it. So whether you were the cutter, the screener, it doesn't matter. You had a role within that.
You know who gets the most shots in offense is the guy who sets a good screen. Because if you go down and set a good screen, your guy that's guarding you normally has to go and hedge and help, and you can step back off that screen and get shots. So you obviously know what you're talking about because all five guys are involved. And it makes it so much harder for the defense because they got to worry about, who's going to come in and screen me? Who's going to bang me? Where's my cutter going? And it's one of the reasons why we shot so many free throws because guys are grabbing, holding, and when you're coming off and you read the cut the right way, you got an advantage. If you've curled and gone tight, that guy's chasing you. He's going to have to reach in, foul, or whatever. But think about this. Indiana is lucky right now to score 60 points in a game. It's almost embarrassing. And there's a shot clock at 30, a reset at 20. So there's way more possessions offensively in a game than there was when we played. And yet we probably averaged 75, 80 points a game. So you tell me which one's better. Because we shot a lot of free throws just because guys were reaching and grabbing. But we had guys that could shoot too. And to me, it's just a fun way to play basketball. Why do you want to be the guy that goes over and stands in the left-hand corner when they're playing pick and roll on their high right side and you're hoping he throws you a long hook pass so you can catch and shoot? That doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. Now, I would love to have the freedom to just jack up threes whenever.
No kidding. We talk about that. We talk about that often.
And people say, Steph Curry, he's a great shooter. Well, back in the day when Reggie Miller or some of these other great shooters, they didn't have the free green light just to launch up a 30-footer and the analytics say, hey, you take enough of these, it's going to be fine. It's going to work out. No, that's not the way it was played. It's just so, I hear people say all the time, how do you think your team would do against teams today? I said, well, I'd like to know how they do against us because we had 22 and 23-year-olds and we were hard to guard. Yeah. And they was, we're so much more athletic and this and that. I said, whoa, time out. You don't think Keith Smart could jump as high as anybody that's playing right now? Ricky Callaway, Iowa could dunk from the free throw line. Dean Garrett was 6'10", bigger than anybody that's playing right now. Daryl Thomas would dominate in the post in college basketball right now because he's got moves. I mean, look at what Trace Jackson Davis does right now. Yeah. He scores 20 points a game with no right hand. Daryl could go right and go left at a jumper, could make shots from 15 feet. So a guy asked me that, and I just happened to be watching the game when Watford hit the shot against Kentucky. And I called him, and I said, hey, you don't think that team would pound the hell out of us right now? I said, with Watford, Oladipo, Zeller, Sheehy, Hulls, whoever else you want to name, would kill us. That's 9 years ago. So don't tell me we're not going to go back farther. And, you know, the problem with college basketball for me today is you have so many young guys playing right away, and the NBA has gotten away from being the 450 best players. It's the 300 best players and 150 projects and potential players. And it's hurt college basketball because you don't see any big guys that stay until they're a senior. And then if they do, look what happens.
Yeah,
Baylor's got a bunch of seniors.
That sounds like continuity. Yeah, you're hitting on continuity.
A bunch of seniors. Seniors and juniors win in college basketball. I don't care how good you are as a freshman. You're not going to beat.
Then you take a freshman like Suggs for Gonzaga and you sprinkle him into that mix, and then you have
absolutely. There you go. But if Suggs is playing with a whole bunch of other just freshmen, and he's got and he's getting the focal point of the D, yeah, he's going to have some good games, but he's going to struggle against a 23-year-old, 6'4", 210-pound senior.
Yep. You have to get old. You have to get old, and you have to sprinkle your youth into that mold, and they hit the perfect formula.
And that's part of the so-called one and done. I think you have to make a decision as a program. Are we going to go after a bunch of one and dones every year, or are we going to build a program so that we've got juniors and seniors that are playing and we're reloading those each time? Because I really think it's not the glamorous way to do it, but it's the most effective way to win year in and year out.
I wanted to ask you, you're kind of hitting on it a little bit there already, but about the culture and how you build culture. Like, I just watched that documentary over the thing about you guys going to China, and was curious what that was like to be a part of it. And then just how did you build that? Because you had one of your years while you're at IU, was it kind of a down year, especially for Coach Knight. But so how did you guys build culture through that? And, what do you think they need to do to get back to that type of culture?
Yeah, I think, first of all, let's go to the trip. The China trip was, now that I'm 55, almost 55, was one of the greatest trips I've ever been on. I mean, we got to see things that most people will never get a chance to see. At the time, it was miserable. We had just come off a terrible season. The coach was going through a divorce. Alford was dead tired. He did not want to go on this trip. And we had to go back to Bloomington for 2 weeks. So we went home for a month, came back to Bloomington for 2 weeks, and then we're gone for 6 weeks, traveling around. And at first it was supposed to be, hey, we're going to go do this, that. No, coach is going to be up in the stands. No film. No. Well, that lasted one game. And Coach Knight's yelling from the stands, and he finally just said, nope, I'm on the bench. And we didn't start off very well. We went 2-7 in the 9 games in Japan. It was like, oh, this is not good. But then after that, it was a great trip. We had a lot of fun. But I think the biggest thing on how do you build a culture, we had a culture. And then that culture's been broken the last 21 years. Not even so much with Mike Davis, because he kind of got it. He'd been involved in it. But when Sampson came in, when Crean came in, and when Archie Miller came in, there was – and Crean tried. Tom Crean tried. But the other two guys were like, nah, you know what? Coach Knight, I don't recruit one guy that was born when we won a national championship in '87. So – and I fired it. I remember that was the first thing Kelvin Sampson said to me. And I said, well, Kelvin, I said, you think UCLA uses John Wooden at all? And he went, oh, yeah, good point. I said, so you're crazy not to keep this. And so that culture tradition was broken because coaches that came in had a mentality and a strong personality of their own. No, we're going to do this my way, which is fine. But I'll just give you a perfect example of a really, really bad choice by Archie Miller. When we brought Coach Knight back February 8th last year, everybody comes out at halftime. Guess where the team was? They're in the locker room. Played like dog meat the first half against Purdue at home. Huge crowd. Place was ready to explode. if he had anything as far as building the culture and the tradition, he'd have told those guys, get out of the locker room, get your ass out there on the court and see what Indiana basketball is all about. And I lost a ton of respect for Archie Miller when he had his players sitting in the locker room and not out there watching that, because that would have been a coaching moment where you could have said, you know what, you guys don't deserve to be in here. The way you're playing, what's going on, no, get out there and see what Indiana's all about. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy to think that, but I just think it would have been a great moment for not only the players and just to see what that, I mean, I don't know. That was a great day. It was so much fun seeing everybody back. And, you know, I think that's something that when we kept talking about, why are we not getting an IU guy? Why are we not getting an IU guy 15 years ago?
Yeah.
That there is, Indiana has no identity anymore. What are we?
Yeah.
What style of play do we play? When Bob Knight was there, it was motion offense, tough defense, going to make shots, and we're going to win close games. We have zero identity right now, and I think that's difficult. I think it's hard to recruit when you have no identity, and that needs to come back.
Well, let's get into 1987 because I'm chomping at the bit here.
Josh is dying.
I'm going to pick up with the LSU game. Okay.
All right.
We were lucky enough to go down and visit with Coach Knight in Lubbock about 3 summers ago. And got to talk to him for 7-10 hours in his house, just sitting there, hearing basketball stories. So yeah, it was awesome. And, I picked up from that conversation. He's not a huge fan of Dale Brown. I do remember that. I'll keep the quotes to myself, obviously.
Well, wait, hold on. Let me get out there.
Yeah.
You don't remember when he said, "Hey, when we were down 10, we're 12 minutes ago, I looked to my right and saw Bill Brown still had a chance."
So Joe, that was my lead-in to him. I said, "Hey, Coach, my dad's favorite story to tell about you when I was growing up was the Dale Brown thing, and if I'm not mistaken, I think him and Dale Brown, I think that was back when the coaches had to sit in the same press conference, like they were there on the podium together. You like distance, but together. Like,
yeah, I don't know if that was in 87.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't know because they had played.
May have been in 81.
They played in 81. 81, right?
81, yeah.
Right. So, all I remember from the game is Nikita Wilson's fadeaway jump shot, hitting the rim, and you guys going from the Elite Eight to the Final Four. But I also remember Ricky Callaway going down with that leg injury. Kind of what's going through your guys' mind during that, because it is a crazy comeback to win that game with being down to LSU and then surviving that final shot, which I don't know if that final shot would have counted or not, but that's neither.
Well, I think it would have counted. It had gone in, but you know, that's where, and I'll take it a little step backwards here. We never talked about winning national championships. With Bob Knight, it was always, we're going to win the Big Ten. Let's win the Big Ten. That's the goal. Because in the tournament, you got to have some luck. And we played terrible against LSU. Part of it was LSU. Part of it was we didn't play very well. And we kind of got lucky in that game. They missed some free throws, missed some shots, but we made plays down the stretch, which is where we were usually pretty good. If you go back, at least when I was there, we didn't lose many close games. I mean, if we got beat, we got beat. The one game that comes to mind that we lost that was close was the when Nick Anderson hit the shot when I was a senior. But in the LSU game, you know, it was just a struggle. It was a grind, and we just weren't making shots. They were making it hard. They kept switching from boxing one to zone to man-to-man. So, I mean, they really did a nice job of taking us out of things. But, you know, we just kept plugging away. And then when Callaway goes in for that dunk and he misses, and he goes down in a heap and is like, oh, man, nothing's going right today. That was the thought on that. Like, I mean, here's a dunk that Ricky never misses. And, you know, now he's hurt. Is he going to be able to play? And it's like, oh, this just isn't our day. I mean, that kind of goes through your mind. But then you get it down to 5, you get it down to 4, and now you're in almost, all right, we got nothing to lose here type of deal.
Yeah.
And you always see that with teams in the tournament. You know, all of a sudden, something just clicks. You go, oh, we got to go here because we got nothing to lose.
Right.
And we made enough plays down the stretch to win that game. And like I said, they missed some free throws. But we fouled the right guys. I mean, we knew who we wanted to foul. We wanted to foul
that comes into play here in a couple games too. But
so trust me, we didn't just foul guys. We fouled the right guys, but that was on purpose. I mean, we knew who to foul.
Yeah.
When it comes, that's part of having a winning culture.
Coach Knight told us we'll get to the Syracuse game, but Coach Knight told us that he was most proud of the fouls that were committed at the end of the Syracuse game to get who they needed on the line to miss the shots to go through and everybody. And he said that wasn't coach, that I didn't tell those guys to do that.
He did.
He said it.
He said, look, let's not guard Coleman or Cycli. And
let them get the ball.
They throw it to, let's foul one of them. So
okay, we're going to get there. I don't want to skip too far ahead because my favorite game during the run, which the Duke IU game, the game before LSU, I went back and watched it because I didn't remember that as a 7-year-old. I don't remember watching that game, and I just wanted to watch it. And I was just amazed at the level of play, the basketball skill and the athleticism kind of combined together, and the coaching in that game was just phenomenal. But my favorite one is obviously UNLV, and I asked Coach Knight specifically about UNLV because I'm a big Tark fan. I love Tark. I just think he's a great
I love Tark. Tark recruited me.
Okay.
Nice.
All right. Well, I want to get into that too.
Is there a story there?
Yeah. We'll get into that too. But I asked him, I said, Coach Knight, and this is, again, 3 summers ago, I said, when you guys went up against number 1 UNLV, nobody thought you guys could run with them and thought that Indiana was just going to slow the game down, take the air out of the ball, move it around, and try to keep it a low-scoring game. Nobody thought that guys could win a game that went into the 80s or the 90s, and instead you guys came out and ran with them. Now, you ran smart and you ran effectively, but you did run with the Running Rebels. And so I asked him, I said, what did you see on tape that made you do that? And he said, he goes, Tark's team, they don't play defense. He goes, I knew my guys could get one more stop than those guys could.
Well, I'll tell you, this is a great story. We beat LSU, and I think it was on Sunday. We beat LSU on a Sunday, so we get back kind of late, and now we're going to the Final Four. We're going to play on Saturday. So we're thinking, hey, look, Monday is going to be kind of a breather day, rest, go through some things. We get to practice, and it says get dressed, get taped. Oh, no. And if it said get dressed, we're just going to walk through.
Yeah.
Get dressed, get taped meant we're going full bore. And every guy goes, "Oh my God, you gotta be kidding me! We're going full blast today." So we go out there, we half-ass through a little warm up, and then we start practicing. And for 15 minutes, Coach yelled and screamed at us, "If you guys don't have any interest in going down there and winning 2 games, we're not even going to go. This is a waste of my time." I mean, he's just yelling at the top of his lungs. "This makes me sick. Well, get out of here!" Kicks us out of practice. So, when he kicked out of practice, we all go in and say, "All right, come on, guys, let's go, rah, go back out." And he goes, no, we're done. I got no interest in going down to New Orleans with you guys practicing like this. You guys don't even care. Now just get the hell out of here and come back when you guys are ready to practice and the lights go out. Well, when the lights go on in Assembly Hall, they're not coming back on for 45 minutes to an hour. So we leave. The next day, we walk in and everybody's ready to go. And we go through our warm-ups, and Coach says, let's go in. So we go in. He said, all right, here's the deal. We are not going to play against Vegas' D for 45 seconds. I want the first good shot taken. I don't care who it is. We're getting rid of the 4 pass. If you get a good open look, you take it. Because I know they'll give us some good shots early on in the shot clock, but I don't want to grind this down. They'll wear us out, and they'll thump us. But if we get good open looks, we'll score at will on these guys. And we all look at each other and go, oh, my God, we're good to go. And that's how it started. And we had a great practice on Tuesday and Wednesday, really good practice again Thursday. And we didn't go down. I remember Coach saying specifically, hey, all these other teams are down there already. You know what? You guys want to go to New Orleans and have fun? Do it when you graduate. We're going down there to win 2 games. This is like a business trip. We're going down to play 80 minutes. You don't want to play 80 minutes, don't get on the bus. So we go on Friday to practice. And we practice like at 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning because we got to be down in New Orleans at 1:30 for our shoot around time in the Dome. So we go through our little warm up, and he goes, "All right, Red, bring it in," which meant the first team bring it in against White. White converted. First possession, Alford hits a three, and he goes, "All right, let's go. We're ready to go. We're going to go win a national championship." And we went in, took a shower, and got on the bus.
I love it.
And just his ability to see what Josh, you mentioned on tape. There was something that clicked to him that said, if we grind this out, they are really going to clamp us down late in the shot clock. But in the first 15, 20 seconds, we can get good looks. So let's just do it. I mean, that was pretty brilliant by him.
I love that. Well, I heard on somewhere else that you heard something that Coach Knight said after one of the games. But before we get to the championship game, I have a random question. Josh froze up there, so I'm going to steal his time for a random question.
Yeah, please do. I missed that story, and I'm pissed.
Yeah,
I'll get it back. I'll get it on the refresh.
That's one of the best ones. Well, I will tell you this. Going back to that story, though, at the time, we thought Coach was nuts, kicking us out of practice. Now I sit back, and you know what I is? Coach had nothing set up. He hadn't watched enough film on Vegas yet, and it was our day off.
Yeah.
But he wanted to make sure we were back and ready to roll on Tuesday, and that everybody wasn't patting us on the back, telling us how great we were for making the Final Four. I mean, that was brilliant.
That's great.
That was so brilliant by him, and I know he did that on purpose. I know it.
Okay, this is for Josh, too, while you're thinking of the next question. There was a radio spot played on 96 STO in Evansville. The box top's called The Letter had this, and it was like furry head, but they rewrote it, and it was like Steve shoot a three-pointer.
Oh, I remember it. I had it recorded, and I had it on a Fisher-Price little recorder thing, boombox thing, and we used to play it for all my friends while we ran around Steve Alford uniforms. Like, dude, you like Joe doesn't realize, like, I don't geek out. Like, I'm telling you, I don't geek out on celebrities and stuff much at all. But like, I was so pumped to have, like, when Meyer texted me, he's like, "Hey, we got Joe Hillman." Like, I was freaking out about it, and then I'm like, he just knows how big of a Steve Alford fan I am. I'm like one step closer to Steve Alford now. Like, I can't. I know it, man. I know it. But yeah, like, Steve Alford is he is my Mount Rushmore of college basketball, just from all the stuff that Meyer's saying and the Steve three-pointer.
Yeah, great shooter. You saw it. You probably went out in your driveway and shot buckets and said, "Hey, Alford from three."
I know. I was going through this interview in my head today, and I'm like thinking of all the stuff that I'm gonna say relating to Indiana 87. I'm like, this dude's gonna think I'm a fucking nut by the end of this thing, because I'm normally not like this, but like Steve Alford, like I had his free throw shooting routine where he would do his feet, wipe, and then the socks, and then to the butt, and then the 1, 2, 3 and shot. That was my routine for all time. And if I went to the park right now to shoot teams, and I had to shoot a free throw, my ass would be doing that routine.
Oh my gosh!
Josh, I can tell you, you're not the only guy that does that. I promise you.
Yeah. I love that about the Indiana culture too, and I think that you really like personified that too as a player. And Coach Knight, one of the articles that I read from your senior day too, really shouted that out, just about how much Coach Knight respected you and the way that you play. And I think that's such a cool thing about representing a school, is just that you can dominate a game with leadership too. And he recognized that even when you weren't the best player on the team on the court all the time, you could still dominate games with leadership. Even calling you out as the MVP of the Big Ten during that senior day speech, that I thought that was an awesome accolade.
Well, it was very generous and very gracious of him to say that, but I think everybody knew Jay Edwards was the best player on that team. And you know, the neat thing about that whole thing was we had won the Big Ten, and there is nobody that thought that team was going to win the Big Ten in that league with that talent that year. And really, if Nick Anderson doesn't hit a 35-footer at the buzzer and we win that game, we win it with 3 games to go going away. I mean, we didn't even have to play the last game. So, Coach is very gracious about that. And but Jay Edwards, we just had Jay and Lyndon and myself. we just had a way of playing together, and we liked playing with each other, and we knew where everybody was going to be. And somebody told me a stat. I did another podcast about a year and a half ago, and somebody said that when Jay Linden and I started games those last 2 years, my junior and senior year, we went 30-4.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I was like, wow, coach should have started us more. But and that was just, one, Jay was a great player. Linden and but we all wanted to win. People used to ask me all the time, what was it like playing with Edwards? I said, it's great. He made everybody better. And he's the first guy to get on me. Hey, Joe, you got to shoot more. We got to have you score. Come on, get your shots. Let's go. So we just had a great – there was just a great chemistry between the three of us. And it's really interesting. I think, Coach went to that three-guard lineup in the championship game, and we played quite a bit of it in the Vegas game. And I think that's kind of what got him to like, hey, look, Joe can guard bigger guys, because in the finals I guarded Trish, and he was like, this just frees up our offense a little bit, because the following year we didn't start that way. And even my senior year, we started with Jay and I at the guards. We started off horrible, and he called me in the office and said, hey, look, we're going back to 3 guards. You all right? And I said, yeah. Heck yeah, let's go 5 best players on the floor, and that's what we did.
Absolutely.
So, that's another part of the motion offense, Josh, is there's not a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. Get your 5 best guys out there and let them play and move around, because
positionless basketball, right?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Nobody's tied to a position.
What the opposing coach will do when you put a smaller lineup in, they all go smaller. Because they're worried on the defensive end. Can they guard? And even Boeheim did it in the finals. When I was out there and we were playing 3 guards, he brought in Stevie Thompson, and they took Trish out, and they went smaller, which is huge for us. And they did it in my senior year. Teams would go small instead of going big and jamming it inside. It's kind of funny how the opposing coach would try to match up instead of taking advantage of that. So it worked. It was very successful for us, and more teams now play because of the pick and roll, stand 3 guys outside. But we were probably one of the first teams that really went and did a lot of it.
I thought when I was visiting with Coach Knight 3 years ago, I asked him about the motion offense just specifically because I'm a basketball nerd. And one of the most interesting things that he had said to me was, we always told our guys to play 4 feet off the baseline. So we had the baseline to work with and move, and it wasn't an extra defender. You had enough room, but there were certain things that he remembered and certain things that he didn't throughout that conversation. And when I brought up the motion offense, his eyes kind of lit up, and he started getting his hands going, where he was showing me where different screens would happen and how they would slip these screens, and this guy would come on the baseline, and just kind of to sit there and watch one of my basketball idols, and a guy that I consider a basketball genius, to be 3 feet from me and moving, this around. I like, me, I was like completely nerding out on it, but it was a lot of fun to talk hoops with him.
The thing with the motion offense was we had specific rules on you had to be outside the lane, you had to be up off of the baseline so you could back cut and there was room. You had to be offside the lane, so when guys cut in the lane there was room. But the hardest thing about guarding it was the cutter was always looking where the defender was. So if the cutter goes to make his cut and the guy chases, you go tight. If the defender guarding the cutter goes underneath the screen, you step back. So that is hard to teach guys, because everybody just wants to go 100 miles an hour and cut tight, get it to the elbow and shoot it. But, run around guarding Alford for a year, 2 years, you learn, and he was great at it. And all the great scorers, Calvert Cheney was great at it. Woodson was great at it. Scott May was great at it. Brian Evans was great at it. When you learn how to come off that screen and read where the defense is, you go away from that, and that's how you get open. That's the thing that's hard to teach, because you got to have guys that understand what you're looking at, and you can't be in a hurry. I mean, Coach always talked about be a step slow offensively, be a step ahead defensively. On offense, let stuff happen. Don't, you got to read that D. And then as the guy that was passing the ball, you kind of had to read a couple guys. You had to read the screener's defender, because if he jumped in the passing lane, you could. So you were always looking to throw the ball away from the opposing team. So you had to kind of watch what was going on. And so that guy had a difficult time because you couldn't just assume the guy was going to cut tight.
So there's
that's why people don't teach it.
There's a play in the national championship game in the second half that it perfectly fits that description that you just say, and it got you put back in the game, and it got Keith Smart's ass on the bench about 16 minutes to go in the natty. He throws it over. I think Daryl Thomas is cutting. He thought he was cutting one way, he cuts the other, and he throws it over his head and out of bounds, and Knight pops up quick off the bench, and next thing you know, you're in. And I don't think that you then come out of the game from that moment on, because they bring Keith Smart back in, but they bring him back in from Callaway. And then he goes, and then Keith Smart just goes absolutely ballistic. And you play a great game, but there was one play I was going to ask you about in particular that involved you. Well, besides the corner three that Alfred hit and then arrogantly ran to the locker room at the end of the
half.
Yeah, which is one of my favorites. But you made that play. You made the play because you flip behind the back and the screen though, and the screen.
No, but, you know what? Coach Knight brought that up. He made a comment after the game about that. But so what happened in that whole sequence? I played probably the last 2-3 minutes of the first half, and then Keith hadn't played very well. Coach Knight was after him a little bit at halftime, but nothing bad. I mean, halftime was real calm in that game. Like, hey, look, we haven't played very well. We're up 1. We can do better. Keith started off poorly. Coach takes him out, and Keith, I've heard Keith say his story. He puts him back in and says, right, this is your last chance, because if you don't go in and play, I can't use you tonight. But for some reason, I don't know why Coach did it, except I think I hit Alford for a couple shots, or I hit Daryl and hit Steve. He took Ricky out when he put Keith back in, and then that allowed Keith not to handle the ball. And so now I'm handling the ball. Keith started cutting around, and he went bonkers. I mean, it was
you played a phenomenal floor game. You really did. I've watched this game at least 1,000 times in my life because I'm a nerd. But you played a phenomenal floor game, and the play that I was going to ask you about is there's a play where you drive in for a layup, and Derek Coleman just goes in and blocks it with like his chin and just comes down with it. And so I was just curious why you didn't dunk it.
Well, I didn't want to hurt his feelings because he's only a freshman.
Yeah.
And I figured if he undercutted me, then I'd probably get hurt, and that wasn't going to help us win the game.
That's right. Just preserving himself.
Yeah, that's the first time I ever saw anybody block a shot with both hands and just like hold the ball.
Really, I was almost looking to pass because I saw him coming, and then I tried to do a double clutch, and I'm shooting on the way down. And I remember listening. I mean, we've all watched the game. I remember Billy Parent. Oh, that should be a foul on Hillman.
Yeah, yes, he does.
A foul on me. Yeah,
he really does.
Oh my gosh.
So walk us through
about that championship game. We only had 4 guys score.
That's crazy.
That'll probably be a record that'll never be beaten.
Yeah, that's
we only
a good.
had 4 guys score in that game. We won the game.
Daryl Thomas, Dean Garrett, Alfred, and Smart, probably, right?
Yep. That was the only 4 that scored. And but again, it just goes back to, we had guys that could make plays. Yeah, sure, Steve was kind of the lead, but Daryl was a really good college basketball player.
Really good. Dean Garrett was really good. I think I went to the Kentucky game that year and was blown away by just how big Dean Garrett was, how long his arms were.
People don't realize, it's amazing. I meet people all the time that have never seen me before, and they all go, man, you're way bigger than I thought. And it's like, you know what? You're used to seeing me stand up again with Dean and Daryl, and these guys are 6'9", 6'8". Dean was a big guy, and Cycling was a massive guy.
Massive.
And guys aren't built like that. You just don't. Those guys are gone in the NBA now. You see somebody 6'10", 6'11", they're long, lanky, 18, 19 years old.
Yeah.
Ronnie Cycli was 6'10", 235, 240. You know, I mean, he was a man. He was a senior. I mean, you know, Derek Coleman at that time was 6'9", 6'10", and he was a freshman, but he was a big guy, but he hadn't built and grown. You can't blame the guy for leaving, being the first guy picked in the draft, but you know, a guy like Cycli and Garrett, those guys just aren't around in college basketball anymore. Now, Garza,
I agree.
Garza's around, big guy, and he's player of the year because he's playing against 19-year-olds and he's 23. Give me a 23-year-old good player, and I'll take him over a one-and-done phenom at 18, 19 any day. Because, he's going to have some games where he just goes crazy, but night in and night out, that older player is going to be more consistent and help you win more.
No doubt.
So walk us through the final sequence then. Like you're on the floor for the Key Smart shot. And like just walk us through that sequence and then just the euphoria, kind of after.
We'll go a little bit forward. We had fouled Trish. We were down 3, and we had fouled Trish. And Trish almost airballs, and we get the rebound. It was kind of a funky rebound because the ball gets batted out, and Keith and I go down on a 2-on-1, and Keith lays it in, and that cuts it to 1, and we call timeout, like 29 seconds left. And I remember Coach saying, all right, here's the deal. Do not guard Cycli. Do not guard Coleman. When they throw the ball into one of those guys, go foul. So Cycli takes it out. We don't guard Coleman. They throw it to him like perfect. I mean, they didn't even try to get to anybody else. He was just wide open. He just threw it right through. We fouled. So we walk down the other deal. Coach calls timeout. We go down, and this is what Coach Knight said in the huddle. When Coleman misses his free throw, I want the first good shot taken. I don't want anybody to rush it, but I don't want to take it down the wire. But get the first good one that we can get and step up and knock it down. But don't force anything because we got plenty of time. And that's all he said. And Coleman missed, and we went down, and they had switched. Obviously, the timeout, they had said we're going to go to a box and 1. And they've been playing man. So when you see Keith and I bring the ball up the court, there's a hesitation of like, oh my gosh, what are they in? Are they in a zone? Well, so now I'm saying, hey, they're in a zone. Well, then Steve cuts and the guy follows him, and I yell to Keith, hey, box and 1, box and 1. And it just happened to be they kind of lost track of Keith when he made the pass into the post. And Daryl made a good play on not forcing the shot because Coach said, look, we got time, but it's a good thing that shot went in because Keith drifted all the way out of bounds, and Coach had yelled at him all year, quit drifting to your left when you shoot, quit drifting to your left. And it went in. And then the amazing thing is, in today's game, they would have 4 seconds left because the clock was stopped.
But they just let the clock run out.
Yep.
Syracuse did nothing to stop the clock.
And out. And there was 4 seconds.
I know.
I'm standing in the lane like, oh my God. And I'm looking at the
What
clock.
is happening?
And it's
Go.
They not do anything. And I was just amazed because if they took that ball and took off with it, we were all standing in the lane. Because if you see it, all 4 other guys besides Keith go to the lane. So what we were taught at Indiana, if there was less than 10 seconds to go and a guy made a shot like that, no timeout, we're going. Just go. Because nobody's going to be set up ready to go. We would not have been set up. If they were taking the ball out and rushed up the floor, we'd have been in a total scramble mode. If you go back and watch that tape, because we're all wondering, why are they not calling timeout? Why aren't they calling timeout? I remember getting to the huddle and Alfred saying, oh my God, we're going to win this. And I said, oh, we got 1 more second here. Let's, we are. It's unbelievable. Even at that point, though, Alfred goes to Coach and says, Coach, get aisle in for me. Because, we want our best jumpers and everything out there. And so Aisle got Steve and, it was Dean, Daryl, Keith, Aisle, and myself out there. And I'll never forget, they throw that. He just threw it up in the air. Keith catches it and wins the ball up in the stands. I go, Keith, what are you doing? Keep that ball. I mean, he's going to shove that ball, keep that ball. He hurls it up into the crowd. What are you doing?
Barnett would be paying a lot for that these days.
Yeah, I'll be scouring eBay later for that shit.
Well, there's probably 50 of them out there saying, "Oh, this is the ball."
That's
That's okay. Any of them will do. Any of them will do.
It was a Spalding.
Well, yeah, make sure it's the right brand at least.
Appreciate it.
Those are things that Coach talked to you about. And when you hear all this stuff about Coach Knight, about yelling and screaming and blah, 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 blah. I get so tired of hearing about it. He only did that when we were way ahead or way behind, because when the game was tight, half times were tight, it was calm. The worst time to be in an Indiana locker room at halftime is when you were up 24 or up 20, because there was no relaxation, and he was going to pick out one stupid play and go bonkers just so that we were ready to go in the second half. Anytime things were close, it was nothing but calm, and it was, hey, look, this is what we got to do. This is what we got to be. And he was great. And that's why I said we didn't lose many close games because, one, we were a smart team. We made free throws, and we didn't turn the ball over very much, when in nutcracking time. I mean, we just didn't. And a lot of that was practices were hard. He put a lot of pressure on guys in practice to perform because he wanted to see who could be in there at the end of games. So he would get on. I mean, he'd pick guys out of practice and just needle them and grind on them. And I remember one day my senior year, we had some time off, and he calls me over and says, "All right, what do you want to do today?" I said, "Well," I said, everybody's kind of tired, but man, Anderson, he's really bitching about being tired. He goes, "All right, let's just rag on Anderson for a half an hour and see how he handles it." I'm like, "Oh boy!" So I go back over to the locker room. I said, "All right, Eric, get ready." He goes, "What?" He goes, "Just be prepared. This could get ugly." And he's like, "What are you talking about? We've won 13, 14, 15 games in a row." And for a half an hour, he just blasted Eric. Eric couldn't do anything right. And we got in the locker room. After 30 minutes, he kind of kicked us out. And Eric and I sat next to each other in the locker room. He said, "I see what you're talking about." I said, "Well, you shouldn't have told me you were dead tired." He goes, "I knew I should have told you that."
So what is the locker room after the win, the Syracuse win in '87? What's the locker room like in the Superdome? And then what's the ride home? And when you guys get back to campus, like, can you explain just the celebration phase of it? Well, in the locker room, it was, I'll tell you one of my favorite stories. So we get there and we're in the locker room, and Coach comes in and says, "Hey, you know what? For you seniors, Todd, Daryl, Steve, this is the greatest way to go out. I'm so proud of you guys. You guys fought through the whole thing. Great way to end your careers. National championship, da-da-da-da. But for you guys coming back, I want to be here again next year." And he walked out. And I'm like, "Oh, it's time to celebrate." I'm thinking about next year right now. So when we get there, so that was after we, that. And then I'm sitting there, the media comes in. I think Steve and Keith and Coach had to go to wherever, and the rest of the media comes in. And Bob Lee from ESPN is in my deal, and he's asked me, so Joe, walk us through the last 29 seconds. So I go through what I just told you. Hey, Coach told us to take the first good shot, all this, that. When Coach walks by, back from the main media center room, right when I said, and Coach said, "I don't care who takes it. Whoever gets the first good shot, take it." And Coach leans his head in and says, "Yeah, Bob, but Joe knew not to take that shot." And I just crumple. I'm all fired up. So, and then going through the rest of that was beyond winning the national championship. We were in the Superdome, and so we're in the football stadium lockers, and the showers are massive. There's 100 stalls, and so Coach was sitting on chairs in one of the showers that wasn't being used with a bunch of his buddies and assistant coaches.
His back was to me, and I go walk in the shower. And so you go in, there's like a room where he was sitting to the left and the showers are all to the right. And I'm walking in, and he says, "God damn, we don't win this game without Hillman tonight. He earned his scholarship." And
That's
I was
awesome.
like, holy God, you know what? I'm a real part of Indiana basketball now. It just made me feel great. I don't know if he saw me said it, but when he said it, it was just, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So that was great. We get back to the hotel, and they're going to serve us a dinner. Nobody's hungry. Nobody wants to eat. I mean, it's, you're on cloud nine. Your adrenaline's flying. And he walks in and he says, "All right, bus is leaving tomorrow at 7 a.m. Do not be late. And remember who you're representing. You're representing Indiana University tonight. I'll see you at 7 a.m. tomorrow." We walked out. We all went down to Bourbon Street. It was crazy. I mean, it was nuts.
Now you're in New Orleans.
It was fun. I can't imagine there being a better place to go.
Yeah.
But then we get home. We see all the pictures down on Kirkwood at the fountain. And I was just saying, man, how much fun would it have been to go back to campus on Monday night and gotten there at 1:30 a.m. with people just going nuts.
Crazy.
I mean, it would have been. But we show up, 20,000 people in Assembly Hall, everybody on the floor. We do the little thing. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday night, I mean, we were going to Jake's, Bluebird. Getting up on stage. I mean, it was crazy. It was a party for a week. And then we went to the White House on Friday. And I was playing baseball. I remember I had gone out to baseball probably on Wednesday, and I remember them having a game on Friday, and I said to Coach Moore, "Hey, Coach, we're going to the White House." He said, "All right, we're going to Ball State tomorrow. I want you to go." I'm like, "Okay, fine. We're coming back tonight." And, meeting the president, Ronald Reagan, and going in the Oval Office. And I mean, it was an amazing day. Stuff I'll never forget. At the time, you don't think anything of it, but not many people get to meet the president of the United States, and not many people get to go in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
And so that was fun. I get up at 7 o'clock, go to Ball State. It's 32 degrees out, and it got freezing.
Welcome to Indiana.
Play. And Coach Morgan in the ninth inning or something says, "Hillman, get a bat, go pinch hit." I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to hit off the batting, ruin my hands.
Shattered my hands, yeah.
So, but yeah, no, I mean, the afterwards was a lot of fun. I mean, how could you not have fun when you win? But being on Bourbon Street, just, I don't know where it could be better. I mean, maybe down in Bloomington, or not Bloomington, but maybe in Indianapolis if they blocked all the streets off at the end of a game. But there were so many people from IU down there. I mean, the whole streets of Bourbon Street were loaded with IU people. I mean, it was.
Yeah, and at the time too, it was the largest crowd to ever watch a college basketball game.
Yeah, it was like 69,000. Yeah.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And where some of those people were sitting, I was like, why wouldn't you just watch this on TV?
Yeah, no doubt.
They were literally in the rafters up behind the curtain, because in the Superdome, they didn't put it in the middle of the floor. They put it down at one end in the end zone, brought those bleachers in the side, and there was people at the other end zone up in the top rafters watching the game. I was like, I got a picture, too, that's really kind of neat. Somebody got a picture from the floor or something where they took a picture of me, and up in the reflection up in the scoreboard is my image. So you see me on the floor and up in the image of the thing, and it's pretty cool
awesome
picture. So just a neat, it was a great atmosphere to play in the Superdome, because it was really dark in there. And like when you go play at the Hoosier Dome with the bubbles, it was light. It was a tough shooting background. At the Superdome, it wasn't that bad, because they pretty much only lit the floor, and everything else was a decent background. So it wasn't like playing in some of these locations that they play in now, where you're just looking up into outer space. It's a tough percent.
Well, you had Freddie Banks hit 10 threes against you guys in the Final Four, and then you had Alfred hit 7 in the national championship. So there was some good shooting out there.
Oh yeah, no, that Freddie Banks, man, he went nuts on us the last 2 minutes, because we were up 8-10, and he just kept draining threes over me and Isle. I remember one time Isle and I switched, and Isle gets on him, and he shoots one in the corner, kind of fading away, and Isle just looks at me and goes, I don't know what we can do on that. I mean,
Super sub Steve Isle. I love Steve.
It really kept Vegas in the game, and we beat them pretty badly.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we have this part of what we're doing right now for the Final Four weekend is this thing called Hardwood Heaven, where it's a virtual experience, and you can go in onto our site right now, Hardwood Heaven, and you get to kind of click around and explore and pick out some of the greatest stories of college basketball history, and we have product tied to it. But we've been asking all of our guests that have been on the podcast a Hardwood Heaven question that Meyer's going to toss your way.
Okay, so I've got one for you. You've got the gates of Hardwood Heaven open. Dr. Naismith, he escorts you over to the Indiana section, and you have to pick one IU player to hit a shot for your life. Who are you picking?
For my life?
Yeah.
Well, I'd probably better take it myself.
I like it. Bet on yourself.
because that'd be a lot of pressure on a guy. Well, I would probably say Jay Edwards, only because he made so many in my senior year. I mean, he made 5 or 6 shots at the end of the game. But as far as the best shooter, Alford, I don't even think it'd be close. I mean, he was the greatest shooter I've ever seen. I mean, he'd go out and he'd make 24 out of 25 in practice from three-point. I mean, now, he wasn't the scorer that Jay was. Jay could get his own shot. Jay could do this. I don't think you could go wrong, but heck, I'll tell you another guy that wouldn't mind shooting it for me would have been Jimmy Rail. Back in the day when your parents were
lit it up.
Jimmy Rail was unbelievable. I remember going up to Kokomo one day when, I don't know, Jimmy was probably 45, maybe 50, and we went into a gym and shot, and oh my gosh, he still reined him in back at that age. So, I mean, Indiana's always been known for that, but boy, that's
we need to find a few. We need to find a few of those guys current.
No,
we need some current guys like that.
I don't get here's what I don't understand, Josh, is what happened to getting a guy that can shoot. So he's so-called can't guard anybody. So he's so-called isn't the greatest athlete. But we could sure take a few wide open 2 or 3, 3-pointers a game. You can always go hide a guy on D. Just have him go stand and guard the guy that's standing in the corner, for God's sake.
So you might like this story. I worked at Alan Henderson camp. Great guy. Loved Alan. Yeah, super nice. And he was playing for the Mavs at the time. So he had all of his old high school coaches back, and we'd always have lunch together with Alan and all the old high school guys that he had that ran the camp. And I was one of the guys that helped run the camp too, but a younger guy that just was like a hanger-on. But we all got to eat together and hear stories. And he was playing for the Mavs at the time. And, the Indiana high school coaches were all like, yeah, Dirk can score, but he can't play any D. And so that was the big topic of discussion during this lunch. And finally, Alan Henderson says, guys, stop. He said, just stop. He's like, this is the NBA. He goes, we don't pay him $25 million to defend. We pay him $25 million to score. He goes, and we also pay Sean Marion $16 million to guard Dirk's guy too. You know what I mean? So it was like, it's like, man, you get some scores, you get some guys to shoot. You figure out how to scheme around their defense.
Yeah, that's building a team, and that's the one thing that I know Mike Woodson's going to bring back is we're going to bring in guys that fit pieces, and we're not just going to go and say, oh, this guy can't play or what. No, look, like Steve Isle, for example. Man, Steve Isle came in and just did his job. All right? He rebounded. He defended. He'd score on a breakaway. He'd get a tap, and all of a sudden you look up, Steve's got 6 points and 6 rebounds, and he's defended, and you go, oh, all right, well, you know what? That was perfect for what we needed. And the other great thing that Steve Isle did for us is if they had good defensive guards and were pressuring, we'd look at that guy laugh and flip it to Steve Isle, and he'd just bring it up against some 6'7" guy like it was no big deal.
Yeah, and that was different back then. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you have guys that fit pieces. And Coach and I used to say all the time, look, you don't have to score to make a positive contribution to the team winning. And I go back to only 4 guys scored in the championship game, but we won because we had good contributions from everybody that played. And that stuff is just gone now. And it's like these coaches now, they want to make sure everybody's happy. You know what? I'll just give you a perfect example. Christian Landers, probably going to be a good player. No chance he should have gone to college this year. No chance. Physically not ready. I can't imagine Christian Landers playing the Big Ten when I played when there's a bunch of seniors. He'd have got knocked around. It would have been very difficult for him. That's not his fault, though. But Archie Miller should have said to him, hey, Christian, you are not to shoot unless there's 3 or 4 seconds on the shot clock and it's coming down. Otherwise, I need you dribbling around. I need you making plays and getting other guys the ball and doing this. Guess what would have happened when he got the ball at 3 seconds on the shot clock and he was open? He'd have been freed up to shoot it because there would have been no pressure on him to make that shot. He gets the ball with 18 seconds to go on the shot clock, and he's shooting wide open shots. And if he doesn't make it, he's looking over wondering, should I come out? Or am I coming out? So every shot that guy takes is a pressure shot. So why wouldn't you sit him down and say, hey, look, you're not making any shots. You're wide open because the other team wants you to shoot. So go make plays. And if he gets down to 3 or 4 seconds on the shot clock, free will and go. It would have made him a much better shooter, and it would just made the game easier for him. He wouldn't have been thinking as much. And you could see it in his game. He's out there thinking, should I take a shot? Should I go here? He's got to get away from that. I know, and I went through the same thing. I got to Indiana, it's like, oh my gosh, should I shoot? If I miss, am I coming out? You're almost playing not to mess up. Can't play that way. But that would have been a perfect spot for a guy that just says, okay, look, here's your role. If you do this, you're going to play. And you don't have to score to be really good for us. And I just think coaches now, even players and players' parents, they're all worried about, oh, I got to get mine because I got to go to the NBA. Well, you know what? There's 1% of you that might go to the NBA.
Yeah.
Right. Well, Joe, we can't thank you enough. We super appreciate you coming on. You're welcome to come back with us anytime you want to talk hoops, and we can talk current stuff too. So,
I love talking old days. It's so much fun reminiscing about the good old days, I guess.
Yeah,
oh my gosh. Hopefully.
Yeah, there are good old days too, man.